read the context. That's the setup to the parables. And then I want us to retell the parable together. You're going to have to talk to me a little bit. And then I want to go back to some of the context issues. Okay? What we're going to try and do is resituate Jesus and his parable with the context of the gospel, what we already know about some of Jesus' priorities and emphasis in the gospel to this point, and then some, where does Jesus' context and the context of the individual here match up with our context? Yeah? More of it is a lot of situating, because once it's situated, I think the parable speaks for itself. Yeah? We'll highlight that. Okay, so here's what it says. Behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test. And he said, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said to him, What is written in the law? How do you read it? He answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Sounds like a good answer. So he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, you will live. But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, Who is my neighbor? So then Jesus tells him a story, right? All right, so what's the story? Yeah, tell me the story. Okay, so we have a guy. I'm going to use we have a dude. There's a dude. Yeah, okay. And he's on his way along the road, and he gets mugged and beat up. He gets jumped. No, okay. Yeah, fair. Right? By a group of thieves. Bad guys. Maybe. Okay. So then, who comes by next? Right. He's been left for dead on the side of the road, yeah? And somebody comes by, and that individual is a priest. And I shouldn't say it that way. And he avoids the man and passes by on the other side of the road. Yeah? Who comes along next? A Levite. And what does he do? He checks it out, but then he does the same thing the priest did, right? And who comes along last? Samaritan.
So why the hospital's called Good Samaritan?
Yes.
All right, so let's enter the context for a quick second. If you're listening to the parable, and there's a dude, we're going to presume he's Jewish, because that's the context, right? Who's been beaten and left for dead on the side of the road, and a priest has passed him by, and a Levite has passed him by, and now a Samaritan comes along. What are you assuming that the Samaritan is going to do? Finish him off. It's going to take whatever's left and then make sure that he wasn't just left for dead, but he's actually dead. Right? Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah. So, what happens? He stops. And he starts to take care of him, right? Oil and wine would have been used for medicinal purposes. The alcohol and the wine used to clean. Yeah. And the oil used, almost like we would use like Neosporin or an antiseptic, to keep the skin and the wound moist and softened. Okay, so you clean it, and then you oil it, and you bandage it. Because that helps. It helps.
I feel like
it's not the antiseptic that we would use, but it's something that helps the wound heal. Okay. Bandages him, and then what does he do? How? On whose donkey? His. So presumably he's been riding. And now he gets down and he puts this man on his animal, and they They now go together. Yeah? Takes him to where? Okay. Hotel, inn, whatever. A lodging place. Right? And what?
He gives money to the dude.
Right. The guy who owns the establishment. Yeah? He says, here, this should take care of what he needs. If you need more, next time I'm by, you let me know. Whatever's left on the tab, I'll finish up. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the context. Which one of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? Right, he said the one who showed him mercy. He won't even say the Samaritan, he just says the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. What was the man's initial question that sparked the story? Who's my neighbor? Right, that sparks the story. Who is my neighbor? Did Jesus answer his question?
No, exactly.
Kinda. He answered it in one of those backhanded, like, hey dummy, pay attention, this is the real deal answer. Like, this is typical Jesus answer, right? Does he explain who the man's neighbor is? No. What does he teach him instead?
The one who showed him.
Be State Farm.
What?
Like a good neighbor. Be Mr. Rogers.
Hi, Andy.
Be a good neighbor. Think about it this way. Who is my neighbor becomes be a good neighbor. Why? Because if you are the good neighbor, then everybody is your neighbor.
Do you think that Jesus doesn't specify the race of the man on purpose?
Yeah. One, I don't think he has to.
Yeah.
And two, I think specifying the issue of the Samaritan is highlighting his point.
Wait, so you can tell Jews and Samaritans like by their appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't like because the Samaritans are half-breeds, aren't they? Or
They're-
mix or something.
They're Jewish and Assyrian.
Oh, we learned that.
Yeah. That's how they begin, right?
Yeah.
And so that community of people, culturally, there's a different set of values, so their dress is a bit different. Their dialect is a bit different, right? The language and the dialect that they speak, their accent's different, right?
Did they wear the hats back then?
They were what?
The circly thingy?
No,
Like the big one?
Oh,
No.
no, the little one.
No.
Oh, the yarmulke.
no, not a yarmulke. No.
When did that come into play?
Are those strings though?
Probably during the development of Orthodox Judaism. It's a later development. We'll have to talk about it later.
All right.
So hang on a second. Why does the lawyer who's come to Jesus ask him about who his neighbor is?
Because he asked a question first.
I know, but why does he ask specifically who is my neighbor? Because he answers the right answer, right? Love God, love your neighbor. He wants to justify himself. So what does he want?
Justification.
Well, what is he? And the justification, what's he seeking?
He's been rude to
Justice.
Samaritans in the past.
Potentially. Basically, he wants to know who he doesn't have to love. If the command is love God and love neighbor, and you ask, who's my neighbor? You're not asking, who do I love? You're asking, who can I leave off my list? Right? Can I just love everybody who's like me and leave off those people that are different? Jesus' answer is
No.
no. Jesus doesn't clarify who the neighbor is because it's not about who you can leave off the list. Right? Because the answer isn't, these are your neighbors. The answer is, be a neighbor. If you are a neighbor, then everybody's in play, and you have to love God and love everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, Jesus is pretty good at that. Now, hold on a second. Let's go back to the world of the parable for a minute. The man's been beaten, he's left for dead on the side of the road, and a priest comes by. The command is to love God and love neighbor, right? So why doesn't the priest help?
Ooh.
Unclean.
That's right. Because the priest is concerned with matters of purity. So he avoids the man for the sake of ceremonial practice. Is that love?
No.
Strike one. What about the Levite? It's the same concern. The priest and Levite are both concerned with the same thing. If I'm to serve God in the temple, then I can't come into contact with this person because it would make me ritually or ceremonially unclean. Now, the irony in that is, which would God prefer? Would he prefer you to be ceremonially clean and do your one day a year in the temple or whatever their service happens to be, or would he rather you help the man who's left for dead on the side of the road? He'd rather you help the guy. The two individuals, the priest and the Levite, of the three, right, that you would expect to know that better, ignore it for the sake of their ceremonial purity. And the individual that we would look at in the parable with condescension, if we're entering the world of Jesus here, the individual that we would look at with condescension, with judgment, is the one who actually exemplifies love for God and neighbor better than the priest and the Levite.
It's just like that one we did yesterday.
This is how Jesus, and this is how Luke highlights, as Jesus does it, the outcast, the marginalized, the disenfranchised. Like the Roman centurion, who's the example of faith, the Samaritan, the last person you would expect in a story like this, the Samaritan is the individual who demonstrates love for God and love for neighbor. Which also means you cannot refuse to love your neighbor and love God simultaneously. If you are going to love God, you must also love neighbor. And your love for neighbor indicates your love for God. So if this level of relationships and this level of care and concern for others is broken and distorted, then this relationship is broken and distorted. And for this one to be right, this one has to be growing and improving and better. Does that make sense? And that's to all of us. But you notice that these themes come out when we look at the context. Because here's what happens with parables. We isolate it to just the story that Jesus tells. One of the most critical things to understand in the parable of the Good Samaritan is the question, who is my neighbor? Because that's the catalyst for telling the story. Right? He's looking to justify who I don't have to love and take care of. And perhaps the Samaritans are going to be atop the list. Jesus cuts right to the heart of it. You with me on that? Let's go over to Luke 15 then. And let's do a little more with some of these parables. There are three here I want to do together, okay? Let's start in 15 verse 1. I need somebody to read 1 through 7. All right.
Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent.
Okay, so context. Who is Jesus hanging out with?
Pharisees and sinners.
Not Pharisees.
Right.
Tax collectors and sinners, right? People who defraud their neighbors of their tax dollars and steal it for themselves, and sinners. Sounds so scathing. We're all in that camp somewhere. Okay. Sounds a bit like the way Simon the Pharisee talked about the woman at the dinner party, right? Okay. And the Pharisees and the religious leaders begin to grumble against him. They're not a fan of Jesus' associations. Go ahead.
Simon the Pharisee, is he still on the court that he has to go? Wait, would he be in the same region?
No, probably not.
No.
Sadducees.
Sadducees. Right.
Okay, so in response to their complaining about Jesus' associations, right? He tells them a parable. You got 100 sheep, and you lose one. Little Stevie the sheep has wandered off. Uh-oh. We lost Stevie. We gotta go find Stevie. Now hang on. I have a question. You have 100 sheep. Your livelihood depends on the flock that you have. And Stevie is gone. What are you going to do about Stevie?
You don't get him.
You're gonna go find him. So you gotta go find one, right? What are you gonna do with your 99? Leave them with somebody else.
No.
Guys, sheep
Stupid.
are lazy and stupid. Just saying. Okay? You can pen them in and leave an opening, and if you lay it in the opening, chances are they're not gonna jump over you. No, they'll just stop.
They're not smart.
They'll consider it part of the fence and just not leave. That was actually how they made sheep pens in Jesus' day. So like in the Gospel of John, when Jesus says, I'm the door of the sheepfold, I'm the door for the sheep, they only come out and go in like by me. Yeah, because that's what shepherds would do. They made a fenced-in pen, and they'd lay in the opening. Guess where the sheep stayed? Inside, because they wouldn't jump over the shepherd. They're lazy. Wait, but they're also really dumb. They will follow each other right off a cliff.
Yeah.
No, like legit.
Yeah.
They will actually just follow each other. Nah. Repeat. Okay?
What happened? TV?
They're not that smart. They don't recognize, ooh, cliff, 50-foot drop. I'm going to die. They just keep going. And the one behind doesn't recognize or care that the first one, they just,
My turn.
on repeat. This is what they do, right? This is all reinforced by the fact that I went to college with a guy who raised sheep his whole life. And he's like, yeah, this is what happens. If you don't watch them and take care of them, if you don't protect them from themselves, they will literally not knowingly kill themselves. Because they're dumb. It's also a very good analogy for human persons, by the way.
Yes.
Because from time to time, we can be that dumb too. So hang on a second. You have a flock of sheep. If you own sheep, your livelihood is tied to the strength of your flock. You have 100, but you've lost one. Are you really just going to leave 99 in the open country? I mean, let's think for a second. David says to Saul, look, I fought lions and bears to protect the flock. Really? You're going to leave 99 sheep accessible to wolves, lions, bears? Plus tigers in there, we got to, oh my. No, hang on. Is that really is that the smart thing to do?
No.
But what does Jesus say in the parable? You're going to leave him in the open country.
Go after Steve.
And you got to get Stevie! And when you find Stevie, you're going to put him on your shoulders.
Break his legs too.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what that requires. So here's the deal. Stevie wandered off, and that's not a good thing. I'm glad you picked up on it. Okay. But when you find him, if you want Stevie to never leave again, you're going to break a leg.
No.
You're going to break a leg. And you're going to bandage it and set it properly. And then you're going to carry Stevie around your neck for like 6 weeks while that break heals. And here's why. Because then what's going to happen is he spent all that time hanging out with the shepherd, and he's so close, and he knows you so well, and he's listened to your voice, and he's had to smell you all day long. You've also had to smell Stevie, so like it's a fair trade. Both of you stink, right? End of the day. Now, after that, you put Stevie down, he's never going anywhere but right here. He's going to heel like a dog. But sheep are dumb and they follow each other. And they know to follow a shepherd, at least they know that. But they also know that now Stevie follows this guy. So they're just going to follow Stevie. So you're going to go from Stevie, the guy that got himself lost, to Stevie, who's going to lead the flock back to the shepherd every single time. So wait a minute, your strength was tied to the 99, wasn't it? But if you can have one who will lead the 99 every day of the week, you're better off going against Stevie. You're better off breaking his leg and having to carry him around until that break sets. Because now you're even better off. Hold on. We're not done. When he finds the sheep, he's going to lay it on his shoulders. And when he comes home, he's going to call together friends and neighbors and rejoice. I found my sheep. What's he going to do? He's going to have a party. I lost. Wait, hold on. I lost my sheep. I found him again. Let's celebrate. What's a shepherd going to do to host a party? He's going to cook some lamb.
No,
No, wait, he's not. No, because Stevie's too valuable now. He's not going to cook Stevie, but Sally's up for grabs. Hold on. He just left the 99 to go get one. He's got the one, and now he's going to cook a few. Here's the point. The cost to the shepherd is irrelevant when one is lost, because the moment that one becomes lost, it's worth exponentially more than it ever was before. Let's read the next parable.
Is he carrying that sheep around the party?
Probably. All right, start in verse 8. Read to the end of verse 10.
Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Will she not lie awake, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me. I have found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents.
Okay. So the first parable was about shepherds, outcast, marginalized, disenfranchised. One, because they smell bad. Right? The next parable is about a woman who's got 10 coins and she lost one. You have 10 quarters and you lost one. When you find it, you're going to throw a party. That party's going to cost you more than a quarter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm oversimplifying. It's probably more than that, but let's just consider it for a second. Let's say she's got 10 days' wages, 10 coins, yeah? And she loses one of those. She lost a day's wage. She's going to host a party. It's going to cost her more than the one coin she found. What's the point here?
The value of the coin.
That's right. As soon as something becomes lost, the value of it increases exponentially. Let me do it this way. You're at home, and you're like, oh, I need my phone. But you can't find it.
Well, you pick my phone.
On my phone.
How quick does the situation escalate? If you're like, oh, it's over here, and you go to that last place you thought you put it in, it's not there? And then you go check that other place and it's not there either, and now you're like, oh, I lost my phone. How quickly does that anxiety level start to go up?
It depends.
And then you can't find it
Or I
because when you
can't
relax,
find
it's
it.
the
Depends on how, like, if I'm about to leave.
So hang on.
Hey, I
It's
lost
It's
my one, but
crazy
it's
if
still
you're on the phone with someone and you can't find your phone.
Listen, you're exemplifying my point.
I've done it.
You don't care so long as you know that phone is in your pocket. But as soon as it's lost, the value to you of that object goes through the ceiling.
And then you go through when it's in your pocket the whole time.
He says this, just so it is in heaven over one sinner who repents. The value of the lost goes up exponentially because it's lost. Before we get into the last parable, I'm just going to ask you this question. Does it make sense that after the sin of Adam and Eve, God would say, you know what? Let's solve the problem. I'm eventually going to become incarnate in the person of Jesus Christ, and I'm going to die for the sake of a bunch of dumb humans. That solution makes sense? Or if you're God and you've really only kicked off the game, just hit the reset button and start over. Which solution makes more sense?
Reset button. Turn off, turn back on again.
That's not God's solution. So let me follow it up with this. Is the cost of the cross a sensible cost?
No. It makes no sense.
No, it's absurd. Why would God consider it worth it to pay that cost over one?
Because Jesus is able to pay the price for the rest of the sheep.
But even if those 99 don't come around, he still paid the cost for one.
Oh.
So even if there's only one person on the planet.
That's right. Or even if only one person ever believes it. You've got the 99 and you've got the one. The 99 consider themselves having no need of repentance. They're not lost. But the one, the value goes up. The cost ratio is absurd. And that's part of the point of these first two parables. Right? What it costs to throw the party after finding the object that's been lost is immensely greater than the value of the object that was lost. But that's the point. The cost is irrelevant when you care about the object that's been lost. Care about your sheep? You're going to go stir crazy until you find Stevie. You care about your phone? Let mom hide it for you. And then see if you can find it. And just watch yourself and the anxiety level. And with every 10 minutes that you can't find a phone. Right? Yeah? Guys, it's real simple. Don't be on your phones at school.
Conviction.
I just made my point. Most of us have a hard time making it through a 45-minute class without, as soon as we're done, needing our fix. One, there's a whole other segment to like, what do we got to do with cell phones in today's day and age because of the stupidity of it. But anyway, think about it. Part of the parables here is the cost to benefit ratio is an absurdity. The cost of the party versus the benefit of the coin. The cost of the party versus Stevie. They don't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's the value the one looking for the object places in the object. The value of the lost sinner is worth the life of Christ every time. It's part of what's in the parable. Is this making sense? Okay, we're going to save the last one. We'll do it on Monday. I think we got like 3 minutes left. Okay. Questions? Concerns? Are you guys with me on this? Is this making headway on this? Okay. It's not by accident that he picks a shepherd in the first one and he picks a woman in the second one. Okay. Okay. We'll end there.
Can I take a
I
picture
don't
of the
think-
sky?
Yeah, go ahead. Speaking of our friends,
I know. It looks so pretty.
I do have a good view. I like my view.
No.
No, bro, I get that. Oh, God. Oh. Philip.